Court confusion after a judge sets a convicted murderer free. Thank you for joining us at 6. I'm Brian Loftus.
I'm Denise Valdez. That man served 20 years for murder, but he violated his parole and somehow wound up free. This is a story our 8 News Now investigators broke earlier this week.
8 News Now investigator Kyle Payne, the only reporter in court as a judge set this man free. Kyle, what sense can you make of all this?
Denise, Brian, a very unusual court hearing today in Clark County where the lawyers who usually argue to keep convicted criminals in prison argue that this one, who nobody even knew was out of prison for a year, should be set free on a technicality.
The case is old. You know how things get mixed up in the system.
Mixed up in the system, says convicted murderer Jeremy Kelly. An adequate excuse for Clark County District Court Judge Jacqueline Bluth.
First of all, who was consulted in this?
Who questioned a lawyer and investigator from the Nevada Attorney General's office, trying to get to the bottom of Kelly's stops inside and outside of Nevada Department of Corrections and federal confinement.
If NDOC and the feds would have been on the same page, he would have been returned into custody. Correct.
Kelly had been in custody since age 15, when he was arrested and ultimately convicted of murder in 1999. A judge then sentenced him to 2 consecutive life terms, but left the possibility of parole, which he was granted in 2016. But he was arrested again the next year after Metro found Kelly driving with a gun, drugs, and nearly $8 grand in cash. He pleaded guilty, and a federal judge gave him 3.5 years. But prosecutors say after his federal sentence ended in 2022, Kelly was, quote, mistakenly and incorrectly released from federal custody and not returned to state prison for violating the original parole from his 2016 release.
CCDC didn't have any need for him to return, So
that so-called miscommunication brings us back to 2024, when Kelly was scheduled to be at a parole board hearing in January as an inmate. But he was out free, and as the 8 News Now investigators first reported, even as NDOC has Kelly listed as being in out-of-state confinement. But after a week back behind bars in Clark County, while the lawyers...
I'm not as informed about the mechanics behind that.
And Judge Bluth...
Mr. Kelly has been doing everything that everyone had asked of him.
Made him a free man again.
I'm not arguing.
That new parole hearing is now scheduled for April. We tried everything to get someone to comment on this case, but a spokesperson for Governor Joe Lombardo did not respond to our requests. A spokesperson for the Department of Corrections said we'd have a statement yesterday. We don't have. And the Attorney General's office declined altogether, guys.
All right, Kyle, thanks for that. A spokesperson for the Federal Bureau of Prisons also declined to comment on the specifics of this case, but did highlight the department's early release programs.